Hello, welcome to Garden Chronicles. My name is James David, and in today's video I want to talk about this particular plant called Adenium, commonly known as desert rose. Now the factor here is that this particular plant can be considered hardy when the conditions are right, but if they are actually facing overwatered, and this is the problem that you will actually face, which is known as root rot. The problem with root rot here is the fact that how do you mention it, that you will not able to identify it until it is too late. Hence this is one of the problems that you will face when it comes on rainy days. So if you notice over here, this is actually root rot. Now the factor here is this: if this is not attended to it soon, the whole Caudex, or the supposedly modified root ball, will rot. Actually it's rotting. It is actually in a context about 50% rot. Okay, this is actually not my plant. I actually found this in a dump, and I realized that somebody have decided that it's a goner, so they threw it away. But somehow one of the ways to know that it can be saved or not, that this particular plant is actually alive, is to watch and look for a one or two living root ball. So if you notice here that this particular root ball, until over here it is still fresh. Similarly over here, this is still fresh. So in a way it can be saved. It's more of 50-50 chances, and the rot is only here, and so these are the portions that need to be treated. So I will show you exactly what to do and how to do it. In a way, this is actually not a goner yet. Now sometimes you can just have to hold and see. It can feel hollow, so when you press, it is sort of mushy, and if it's mushy, then this part need to be sort of like surgery. You have to cut it clean and not replant back, but to leave it for a week for it to fully dry and then replant. That also with treatment. So I will show you exactly what to do. So these are the condition of this particular plant is actually facing. So most cases, some gardeners have no clue what to do. They will just ditch and throw away this particular plant. So in this video I'm going to explain to you how to do it. So the first thing first, you may have just to trim off the excess and remove whatever that is rot. Like over here it's way too mushy. This whole piece I have to, cut it and clean it off first. So I will show you what to do on this. So if you can, on the surface, just trim off and take off whatever that is rot. So of course don't try to pull it, because what happens is that the damage is going to be real, because how I say that, when you pull, all the bacteria and virus and fungus will just go back more further into the plant. So what you need to do is trim, not pull. So in this portion off, just trim with scissors. This portion, trim it with scissors. So for now, what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to clean up all this, and I may have to wash off the root ball and take away the soil mess, just to make sure there is no infection taking place. One of the things that I want to mention to you here is that if you were to find this root rot, and most amateur mistake that has been done here is that most beginner gardeners will repot them back using the same medium. So the factor here is this soil medium is actually infected with fungus. So you may not actually see it, but the spora is all around it, this bacteria and the fungus. So do not use back the same soil medium, because the infection is there. So you may have to throw away or put it in the sun or something like that, the one that is being infected, and use a fresh new soil medium matter, because one of the things is that you don't want to have a reoccurrence of the root rot that took place. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to clean up all this and remove all these rotten pieces of root ball. Another thing that you have to notice here is that can you actually see this? This is actually fungus. Can you see this? Fungus. All this is a telltale sign of fungus problem. So these are the things that you have to watch out for when it comes to cleaning up. So what you can do here is that you can actually soak it using a fungicide in 1 or 2 days time. But basically what I will do here is that I might use a toothbrush to scrub off all these pieces and clean up, and do not immediately pot it. Keep it maybe like 2-3 days in the sun and let it fully dry off, and observe and see that there is no new infection of rot. Only then introduce it in a new medium. So for now, the most important thing is cleaning up this dirt and mess and rot, because if this has not been taken care of immediately, this whole infection is going to spread to the whole plant. It will not recover. So some people will thought like, okay, there is a rot, they leave it and thinking that it will recover. It won't. The whole plant will die. Eventually the whole root ball will be rotten, and then you might end up like over here, you may have to trim it, and you might lose this whole beautiful Caudex. So the beauty and the cultivation of this particular ornament plant is because of this beautiful formation of Caudex, not so much on the flowers. And I believe that these flowers are very much common type, so it's not the multi-layered type. So what I can say here is that the beauty is actually here. So I'm basically going to clean up this, and I'll come back to you shortly on after it's cleaning up, because I'm going to wash off all this root ball and scrub and clean and clear, and I'll show you the result. Catch you later. I have now washed it and cleaned up as much as possible, but the damage is far more extensive than what I thought I can actually say. It's actually hollow, and this is okay. Let me explain some things. This is very fibrous. I can constantly dig and clean up as much as possible. By doing so, I might actually damage the healthy roots, which at the end of the day, it's going to be binned, because I have not able to do everything, because I know that if I were to constantly clean and clear everything, the damage is going to be more extensive. There's nothing much to save, and it's going to be as worse as what I thought. The condition is quite critical. It's actually very hollow inside. You know, you can see it, and a lot of it is actually just rotten. The positive side of it here is that the external side of it is firm. So in a way, it's promising, but it's going to be a 50-50 chance. So I'm just going to take a chance of it, because I like the plant, and I think it's about a few years old. Easily, I can say roughly about 10 years, this particular plant. So it can behave like a bonsai. So this is one of the issues. Okay, the most important thing that I'm going to do here, this is actually a fungicide. I apply a little bit of water to make it like a paste. So basically I'm going to apply this whole thing inside of this hollow spot and wherever the infection has taken place, and I'm going to put it closer to the sun, and I'm not going to let any water to touch it, and I'm going to observe it and see within a week's time to see whether the rot has stopped and the plant started to heal its wound, and that is the promising factor. Another promising factor are the crown. I see the crown is quite healthy, very branchy, and it's alive. So this is very promising. So in case everything is gone on this part, most probably I'm going to trim this part and start it over here. There's some area roots are sort of forming over here. So this is the worst case scenario, but I'll try to save this root ball, because it has this aesthetic value where it looks more like a bonsai kind of effect. In my experience, I believe I can save it, but you'll never know, because as I said, now the rainy condition, the weather is not so good, so a little bit of this small thing can actually cause this plant to die. And I think I found this plant too late, and I have not attended to it too soon, and I think it's more in a critical stage. So let's see how it happens. So for now, what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to apply this fungicide into this all these places, and I'm going to put it in a sunny spot just for it to dry off. What you can do is that not to water it and keep it in a bright shade, not in a total shade. The other factor that you need to watch out for is that, let's say if you do not have a fungicide, this is actually the one that I bought from a nursery, a normal common fungicide will do, but let's say if you don't have a hands on it, you're not able to get it, you can actually use turmeric powder mixed with water. You can use cinnamon powder, you can use clove, any of the antibacterial lotions or cream, or you can also use mouthwash just to soak it for a while and just to stop the infection from taking place. Basically is that in worst come to worst scenario, these are the things that need to be done. I have just washed it, so it must be dry. Don't let it soaking wet. Don't worry about the roots taking water, because this plant can actually survive without watering at least for a month. Looking at this condition, I think it's overwatered, and because of that the root rot has taken place. So don't worry about watering, and if you are so worried about it, just mildly spray the top part for the plants, but basically it's not a big deal. In most cases, most of the Adenium collectors, these desert rose, they will normally trim off all this top of these branches, so that they want to keep it more short and blooming. So in a way, it's not so important. This is actually very secondary. So let's see what is the result of it in a week's time, and I will come back to you on the update of this video. So for now, cleaning, washing, fungicide and drying, and see if at all this plant survives. Catch you later. You can see I'm just leaving it in the sun. This is how it is supposed to be like. Hot, direct, bright sun, but not too hot, and not say like hot blazing sun. This is what I want to show to you. I'm just drying it in the sun. Occasionally I'll just turn it around. My intention here is to make sure that this water residue fully dries off, because that is what is very important for now, because lack of which the rot may continue to take place. So in this condition, I know that it will fully dry off with the fungicide applied upon it. So this will be a very good style of doing it. You can see over here the rot that have taken place all the way in. So occasionally just turn around, just observe, let the whole thing dry off faster, and keep it in a shade, and then observe and see if there any new rot takes place. I think we should, if this recovers, then this plant is actually safe. Hello, today is day 2, and I've noticed that in this portion here it is still wet even though I placed it in the sun. And I found that one of the ways that you can actually handle it is by using newspaper and stuffing into the hole that is been cleared out from the rot. And I find that this actually helps. This is, I think, about 2 or 3 times actually I've done it, and I have placed the newspaper and it is actually soaking wet. Now one of the most important thing here is that this need to be dried, fully dried, and as long as it's wet, it's the rot is not going to be cured. So this is a very important thing to be done. It's still moist, it's not so wet like what it was earlier. And I've also noticed that sort of I've lost a root ball. This particular one appears to be rotten, so I may have to cut, because it may not survive. There's a very slim chances of this particular tissue which is still alive. Now I can start a new plant from this, because this roots is still alive, and new branches might appear from here, and you might start a new plant from this. But still there is still time for me to figure out whether I want to trim this or not because of the rot. But as for now, see, the rot has infected here, So if this doesn't cure, then I may have to trim it. Likewise, even this root ball is quite thin, so I do not know whether this portion might survive because it's still firm here, but this particular one is a bit questionable. So I will also, there is a new set of rod which is over here, which is not yet cured. So in a way, you will not able to know as time goes by. You have to slowly figure out, but overall the plant is still okay. There's not much of damage there, so do take note that it needs to be fully dry, and it's very important because if it doesn't dry, the rot will continue. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to take a new set of newspaper and I'm going to squash it and I'm going to put it in and hope that it will continue to absorb whatever excess moisture and wetness as this supposed fibrous part will dry off, because I find that I can cut this, but most probably what's going to happen is that I might damage the plant, and I don't want to cut off living tissue. I just want to take away the rotten ones. So just hope that I can salvage as much as possible, because this is very important, because if I were to continue to cut more than what is necessary, I'm going to damage the plant. Now the other thing here is that what I want to mention is that after cleaning, make sure that the trunk is fully dried and not to water it. Don't water it until it's 100% dry, and I will show you the next step. So see you again. Take care. Hello, now it's day 2 evening. It's an update about this particular thing. I am still putting in newspaper to take out the excess moisture from the root ball. It's not so bad now. The newspaper is more drier than the usual. Of course, there are some portion of it is still wet, but it's so much better than before. I think this is my 4th newspaper stuffing. So far so good, but I noticed that the fibrous part takes a longer time to dry, especially this particular side, and then this part is, now you can see it. Okay, this part here is a bit questionable. It's still wet, even though it's drying in the sun for 2 days, yesterday and today. It's still wet, and I think this might go. So I'm not sure whether we can, but I know this portion, this particular portion of the root ball is still firm. Other than that, everything appears to be okay. This part here, it was soaking wet and moist. It's a bit 50% dry, so it's more promising now. The fiber is not rotting, so it's more promising. So how do I know what is promising and what is not? As long as I don't scoop out something that is mushy and what do you call that, very wet, that means the bacteria and has already done its job to infect the tissue. As long as it's dry and there is no appearance of something which is rot, then it's fine. Let me show it to you. How does it look like currently? So it's still wet. Can you see it? It's still wet. Yeah, this part. I think I might change another set of newspaper for now. But look at that. It's so much better, you know. Earlier I can just scoop up like something like a juice, like more like a fibrous soup kind of thing, but now it's dry. Now this is a bit questionable, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to trim it out or leave it first. I think I'll leave it first, because what happens is, like, if when I constantly trim, the infection seems to be going further and further. So I just leave it first, let it fully dry. So I think it will be sort of like cured within a week's time. I'm actually thinking of using talcum powder, or perhaps the antibacterial food powder. I think that will do good to stop the moisture. I think I might apply that later after this. Maybe another few more newspaper stuffing, removing excess moisture in it, and I can try it. If you can see something yellow here, this is all the fungicide in my hands. I need to wash my hands later. Yeah, I think I'll use that powder, talcum powder, with the second set of newspaper. I think some of it I can use, but still questionable. Okay, so the video is about 15 minutes plus, so I might stop adding short scripts of video in this, and I will close this as part 1. Follow up with me in part 2, and if you have any questions, do put in a comment below and I'll try my best to answer them. So for now, I catch up in your part 2. Have a nice day. See you in my next video. Take care. Bye.